Hello, chapter 19 of Hercufleas. Hercufleas woke in a matchbox padded with cotton wool. He turned his head and found himself on a windowsill, lying in a sunbeam. Outside was a road strewn with rubble. A wonky sign said Merritt Street. He didn't know where Merritt Street was. This wasn't the Woodent or Avalon. This was somewhere he'd never been. How long had he been asleep? Grimacing, he sat up. Dull pain shot through his broken arm. Someone had sewn up his cracked skin with cotton thread, fixing it back in place. He was mending some parts of him anyway. There was nothing else to see on the street, so he turned his gaze inwards toward the room. It had been a school once. Now half the roof was gone and the desks had rotted in the rain. Old books, swollen with damp, sprouted on the sill beside him like fungi. A faded display lined the far wall, pictures painted in bright colours by little children. Names were printed below them: Isla, Ivan, Greta. This must be Tumba. Greta's painting was of a small girl, a man, a lady, a donkey and a goat. She'd painted smiley faces on everyone, even the sun. Hercufleas noticed her then. She was asleep on the floor, curled up by the blackboard, cuddling her axe the way other children cuddle dolls. Hercufleas watched her for a long time. She was having a good dream, he could tell. She was smiling ever so slightly. Why hadn't she abandoned him the way he had abandoned her? Down the corridor came the echo of footsteps. An orange glow grew brighter in the doorway. Quickly, Hercufleas lay down, back down in his matchbox and pretended to snore. He kept one eye open. Into the classroom came an old babushka with hair like chicken wire and a tiny copper earring in the shape of a bell. Ah, do we know this person? I think we do from the prologue. She had dusted her cheeks with flour and drawn her eyebrows on with charcoal in an attempt to look glamorous. One hand held a walking stick with a brass tip and a carved fox head handle. In the other, a fat orange tinder fly burned on the stub of a sugar stick. The babushka looked from Greta to Hercufleas, shaking her head. She muttered something in a language Hercufleas didn't know, setting the tinder fly down. She gave Greta a gentle poke with her stick. 5 more minutes, Mama, Greta mumbled. The babushka sighed and brought her stick down on the floorboards with a sharp crack. Greta groaned. Mama, Wuff is barking again. The babushka went over to the blackboard and raked her long nails down it. They screeched like broken violins. Greta sat bolt upright, awake and scowling again. She had feathers in her hair from the pillow propped beneath her. Wake him, said the babushka, plucking the feathers out. I must tell you what will happen. Greta yawned. Oh, can't it wait for another hour? The babushka, tst. Greta, stump. Even in class, you are always with the questions and not with the listening. Less than a month now until Yuck comes back to Tumba, and you wish to sleep? Those he guzzled in the Woodent will not sate his hunger forever. Yeah, Stickler was all greasy and bony, said Greta. Onk and Oogle were meaty though. Even so, when he returns, this flea is the only hope we have. Hercufleas lay still, but his mind raced. This flea? Why was the old babushka talking about him? Greta scowled. I still say you're wrong about him. The babushka tissed again and drew her lips into a pencil-thin frown. And did you lose your manners when you left for Avalon, along with Tumbler's last gold florins? Greta blushed, lowering her head. Sorry, Miss Witz. Miss Witz put bony hands on bony hips and stared at Hercufleas. He shut his eye quick and made mumbling sounds. I wonder, he heard her mutter, I wonder if he really is the one. She sniffed. Let me know when he wakes, child. Yes, Miss Witz. Hercufleas heard her leave. "You know," said Greta in the silence after Miss Wits had gone, "I was pretending to be asleep before you were pretending to be asleep." Hercufleas opened his eyes. He sat up sheepishly. "You're hungry, I bet," she said. His belly gave a hollow growl. He was ravenous. "I'll take that as a yes," she said, running her thumb across the blade of her axe. Without wincing, she squeezed a bright red drop of blood into a thimble and plonked it angrily down on the sill beside him. "Don't choke," she said sweetly. Here's Hercufleas with the thimble full of blood. Hercufleas glugged the thimble down, trying not to gag. Greta's bitterness was worse than ever. The taste of her anger made his throat raw. He waited for the sweet aftertaste, but it never came. Greta's hope was gone. She no longer believed in him. It wasn't a surprise after what he had done. What surprised him was how painful that was. It hurt worse than being crushed by yuck. "It wasn't my idea to bring you here," Greta said in the silence. "I wanted to leave you behind, like you left me." She bowed her head, tears pattering onto the floorboards. "I'm sorry, Greta," said Hercufleas. "Please don't cry." She smiled at that. "But I'm so good at it," she said. "I've had so much practice. We all have. Tumba's other name is the Town of Tears, and I thought you could dry our tears, but I was wrong." Hercufleas couldn't meet her icy stare. "Miss Wits made me go back and find you. She's my teacher, well, was my teacher, before Yuck guzzled the school. She's the reason you're here, and not still stuck on that tree trunk." The ice in her voice softened a little. "Me and Artifacts rode back to the clearing. It was easy. We could see the fires from Tumba, and I heard you shouting those things about your fleemily, saying their names over and over like prayers, and then I realised, you might not care about me, but you care about them, don't you?" Hercufleas looked up. "Greta, Her gaze went from icy to burning. "And Yuck took them from you, didn't he?" Hercufleas nodded, and Greta said very quietly, "I know how that feels." "Greta, why did Miss Wits make you come back for me?" She shrugged. "You'll have to ask her." "Ah, awake are we?" said the old babushka from the floor. Hercufleas jumped. How long had she been there? She was very stealthy for an old granny. Stealthy is a great word, isn't it? It means like sort of really sneaky and quiet, sneaking up on people. "I am Miss Wits," she said, hobbling right up to the windowsill, "and you are Hercufleas, and Greta brought you back from Avalon, the island of heroes. But you are not a hero, are you?" Hercufleas shook his head. "No." Miss Wits paused, and Greta looked at the copper bell on the babushka's ear, but it did not ring. Do you remember when it rang? It rang when somebody was not telling the truth, but it didn't ring because Hercufleas is telling the truth. He is not a hero. "You see, miss," Greta said, "I told you he wasn't. He's not interested in saving Tumba." "Pfft," said the babushka. "It shows only that Hercufleas believes he is not. There is a difference, but not a great one. Believe something, and it is halfway to being real. Besides, I say, so what? Many heroes have come to Tumba before, and all failed to protect us. Yet Hercufleas has bought us some time." The copper bell rang on her ear, and she smiled. "Well, yes, I suppose that isn't strictly true. It was those two villains and that pig who filled Yuck's belly for another month. Now he is gone, sleeping somewhere deep in the woodland. But as always, he will wake up and he will come back. So we must prepare to fight once more, and if we win, perhaps Hercufleas will see his fleemily again." Hercufleas thought of Min and Pin and the others in that broken down house hat on top of Yuck's head. Miss Wits was right. If they could survive up there for a month, the giant would bring them back to Tumba when he next came to guzzle. "But we are getting ahead of ourselves," Miss Wits said. "Hercufleas, you must tell me, if you are not a hero, who are you?" Greta scowled. "I'll tell tell you who he is, she said. A coward, a liar, a weakling. I did not ask you, Greta. Hercufleas stood on the windowsill, looking at his reflection, searching it for an answer. It stared back, blank-eyed. Who was he? A sad little sultana-sized flea with a cracked arm and a broken heart sitting on a windowsill. I'm alone, he said. I see, said Miss Witz, and now that you know what you are missing, you can tell me what you want. Once, Hercufleas would have cried out, Adventures! But he was not a little hatchling any more. I want my Fleemily back, he said, turning to look at Miss Witz and Greta. I want to stop Yuck from taking anyone away ever again. But how can I do that? Miss Witz said very solemnly, That is the question that only your quest will answer. Quest? Greta shook her head. Is this a joke? Why isn't your bell ringing? Heroes go on quests. Hercufleas isn't a hero. Good, Miss Witz said. No hero can defeat Yuck, because no hero can wield a weapon big enough to destroy him. To Yuck, Excalibur is a toothpick. An arrow from Rama's bow is a pinprick. Ugor's bazooka did nothing much. A blade big enough to chop off Yuck's head would need to be many houses high. Who could lift such a thing? This is what Greta made me realise the night she stole the florins and went to Avalon seeking a giant slayer. And she found one. You. Me? Hercufleas groaned. Haven't you been listening to Greta? I'm not a giant slayer. I'm just a flea. Miss Witz's face wrinkled into a smile. Which is very lucky indeed, for a flea is exactly what Tumber needs. Hercufleas looked up. Is it? Yes, because there is only one weapon capable of destroying Yuck, and only a flea can wield it. Miss Witz sat on the desk by Greta and took from her pockets 2 knitting needles and a tangle of wool. In her lap, she began knitting her wool into a green scarf in the air. She began weaving her words into a story.